Shalom, giving all praise to Yahawah, Qadash. Shalom, so hopefully let that go. Anyway, I'm going to entitle this video, many of you don't understand Ezekiel 38 and Revelation 20, verse 7. Gog, Magog. So yesterday we at the camp, we had some of the brothers from Men of Valor come to the camp. They have a camp, and after they finish the camp, they come to our camp. And the one brother, young elder, you know, he used to come up and ask me questions to the side. And I said, "Oh, you gonna ask me another question?" So he came up this time, and I said, "Look, ask me those questions now, so it could be on the camera." Because then I even said, yeah, because it's on camera, so when you get it, everybody gets it at the same time. You know, the scriptures speak about, you know, the candle under the bushel, under the bed. I'm merely paraphrasing, put on the housetop. So we don't want to have any secret meetings, and then we're going to leave it from the public, and then we'll spring it on in 2 years. No, just let it come out as a spirit. Give us utterance. The spirit was on us on that. And I even said to them, there was 3 of them. I said, yeah, I said, that's the spirit. See, this is the spirit, you know, working through us. And they even mentioned, I'm pretty much like High Priest Yahawah. High Priest Yahawah didn't go into brotherhood scriptures and how to deal with your family. He didn't go into stuff like that. He went into prophecies. When you went to his class, you went into prophecies, you went into biblical history. We were required to get the Josephus. When we first came in, you had to get these books. You had to get the Zandervan Bible Dictionary. There was the Smith Bible Dictionary. This is before the web, this is before Google. Back then, we had to go to the library a lot and look up certain things. So you had the Zandervan Bible Dictionary. You had the scriptures, of course. You had the Apocrypha. You had the Zandervan Bible Dictionary, which has bones in it. You know, it just gives you certain references that we use. We'll say, well, even these Edomites agree with what we're saying. So when you Christians come across an Israelite camp, I mean a prominent Israelite camp, and you ask some questions, maybe you go into the conversation of prophecy, and we say this means this and that means that, and you say, well, that's what the Israelites say, and we know that you can't trust what the Israelites says. They really don't know the scriptures. They're apostate. They're of the devil. Well, this led me some years ago to go to these commentaries. Now, these commentaries, the main one I go to is Cambridge Bible for Schools and Colleges because it's normally short. But then you have Matthew Henry's concise commentary. You have Barnes' notes on the Bible. You have Bengal's Noman. So you have a bunch of them, right? So this is Cambridge. You got Expositor's Greek Testament, meaning who's ever the head of this one, they're doing a lot of research in the Greek. You know, you Christians that buy books that Christian writers, historians put together, guess what? They have teams that go over to the Middle East, go over to areas that's written in the Bible, and they excavate. They have historians, they have archaeologists. Archaeologists simply means meaning old, and ology meaning the study of the ancients. So when they go and they read something in the scriptures and they say, well, how do we know if this actually happened? Because Esau is not a spiritual man. He's not a faith-based individual, faith-based individuals. They read something in the scriptures, like the ark, Noah's ark, that's famous in the scriptures. There was a man named Noah. He had a wife, he had 3 daughters and 3 sons-in-laws. I'm sorry, three sons, and they had wives. And out of those, and they teach you that in Sunday school. And out of those 3 sons, Ham, Shem, and Japheth, came everybody on the planet Earth. But the main proof to prove that there was an actual ark, and thereby proving that there was an actual Noah, and thereby proving that all the people of the earth come from one of these 3 sons, Ham, Shem, and Japheth. So they said, this is how we're going to prove it. Let's find the ark. They knew that the ark landed in Mount Ararat in Turkey. So they know where Turkey is. Turkey's still being called Turkey today. Mount Ararat is still there. And they had, this is in the 50s, they had scientists, Christian scientists, Bible historians, Christian historians, archaeologists, experts on the Bible, you know. They probably used, what do you call that? Carbon dating. I'm not an expert on that, so where you can take an object and you can get an estimate how old that object is, like a dead body that's been dead for some time and it turns into bones. What they have to do is use some form of dating or carbon dating, I guess, but they use some form and they'll say, well, this man was between the ages. First of all, it was a man, had a man's DNA. It was a Caucasian man based upon the skull, or Jake or whatever. And this man had to be between the ages of 30 and 35. So they go to the records, they found out, okay, who lived here? It was a guy named Joe Smith. What was his name? Joe Smith. How old was he? He was 32. Okay, so they were right, between 30 and 35. So African-American, Caucasian, white man, whatever. So that technology came from these scientists that would take a rock and they would say, well, this rock goes back 2,000 years. Like the Moabite stone, the Meshe Stele, I'm pretty sure they did tests on it to see if it's authentic. They'll say, well, this is a copy of the rock, which this goes back only 200 years. No, that's not it. This is the actual Moabite stone, and it goes back over 2,000 years. So it's not completely accurate, but it gives you an idea. So they'll say, this piece that we found with this ancient writing on it, it's authentic because it dates back to 2,000 years or 2,500 years ago. So that's what these people do, and they write books, and regular Christians read those books, and they're shaking their head, yes, oh yeah, that makes sense. Oh, that's the history part of it. But when Israelites do it, y'all don't know what the hell you're talking about. But wait a minute, what if we say the same thing that these guys are saying? What if they agree with us? Then you have to think these Israelites are on to something. That's why you Christians are so intrigued by this whole Hebrew Israelite thing, and you're scared of the fact that it's growing exponentially. If I said that word right, I ain't that good with the English language. But anyway, this is what I did. I put in, I went to Ezekiel, what did I do? Ezekiel 20. I'm sorry, I went to a Revelation 20 and 8. Because the young elder was asking me about Ezekiel 38. You know, actually it goes into Ezekiel 39, but we're mainly dealing with Ezekiel 38, which you have a lot of brothers that they break it down wrong. And it shouldn't be a hard breakdown. And I'll go into it, but I immediately said, well, this goes hand in hand with Revelation 20, verse 8. So Revelation 20, verse 8, we know that that's not talking about a prophecy that already took place. We know that Revelation the prophecies in the book of Revelation are taking place now, and are going to continue to take place. You know, when the Lord comes back, you know, Revelation 19, Revelation 18, you know, the various scriptures, when the Lord comes back, Revelation, you know, all these different scriptures in the book of Revelation, not to mention the other prophetic books, which Christians, they hit or miss on those particular scriptures. But they were pretty much on point with what they said concerning the book of Revelation, Revelation chapter 20. Now, if you notice, it gave you references to, okay, this is Revelation chapter 20, verse 8. It gives you references to what? Genesis 10, verse 2, talking about the sons of Japheth, which are dark people, which have to be, they're like the Samoans, the Pacific Islanders, the ancient Etruscans and the Minoans and the Picts. You know, when you go back, all you have to do is go back into the history of the ancient Roman Empire, and one of the enemies that they fought, because what did they do? They were setting up an empire. So an empire is when you take over other existing nations and you make that nation a province of your kingdom, of your empire. So you had a lot of pushback from these nations, and one of the groups that pushed back was the sons of Japheth. Matter of fact, Romulus, you go into the history of Rome, you have to know about Romulus, the brother of Remus, that was supposedly suckled by a she-wolf. That's a legend. But Romulus, which the city Rome was named after Romulus, he was a Japhet. He was probably an Etruscan or a Minoan or a Picts. You know, the garments that the Roman emperor and the Senate, they had the togas and the rosemary wreaths around their head, and they got that from the Etruscans, you know, the Minoans, the original sons of Japheth. That's why you have Israelite groups out there that say, oh, the white man came from Japheth, because that was taught back when I was a kid. That's old school. So anyway, the first mention of Japheth or Goma or Gog, right here in Genesis 10, verse 2. Then you got a reference in Ezekiel 38, pretty much all of the 38 chapter, 38 and 8, 38 and 4, Revelation 19. So what the young elder was asking, he was asking about, you know, what is this all about? And it says the land of Israel and the people of Israel. And I said it's twofold. It's talking about these JJs that are over there now that's going to get jacked up. And but it's also talking about Israel, because guess what? You have a couple, I don't know the exact number, but you have like 4 or 5 generations of Jake that's been living in the land of Israel since the 70s. They first went to Africa and then they settled in Israel, but Dimona, Israel. So we're talking about when they left Chicago, that was in the late 60s. So we're talking from 69, 70, 71 up until now, you're talking about 5 generations, possibly 6 generations. So we're talking about not a couple thousand people, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of people, possibly 1 million. I don't know the exact numbers, but there's a lot. There's Jakes that have been living there that grew up in Israel that speak fluent Hebrew. The Hebrew, when I say the Hebrew, I'm talking about the Ben Yehudi Hebrew, which Ben Yehudi, he had a European sounding name. I forget what it was. I did a video on him. And he came to the conclusion that the actual spoken Hebrew is really Arabic. So when you listen to an Arabic speak, they're speaking actual Hebrew. You pick up certain words. You listen to an Arabic speaking, you listen closely, and you're gonna pick up Hebrew words out of it. So his thing of saying that this is the Hebrew, this is the new Hebrew, is basically Arabic, but he changed a couple, instead of Abu, Abba. Instead of like in Arabic will say, like we would say, Atha, AHPARYAM, or are you a Hebrew? But the Arabs would say, instead of Atha, they would say anti. So if they would say, are you Arabic? They would say anti-Arabic, which means, are you Arabic, right? As is one individual, he's an Arab. Years ago, I said, how do you say woman in Arabic? He said, Aisha. So now, how would you say it in the Hebrew? You would say, Ayasha. How do they say it? Aisha. We say Ayasha, which is the feminine form of saying Ash, which means, oh, I'm sorry, Ayash. Ayash means it's man. Ayasha is man in the feminine sense, which is a woman. So sometimes you talk to these Arabs and then you pick up words. Oh, when they say father, they say Abu instead of Abba. So if Ben Yehudi never, encountered, Ishmaelites, Arabs, and spoken their language, there wouldn't be no Hebrew. That's what he said. I'm not going to go to the. I'm not going to research it for you. You do the research and tell me whether I'm right or wrong. But now you got Google. There's a lot of things that they was posted on Google 5, 6, 10 years ago. They took it out. They took it out. Why? Because we're going to the Google website, and we're reading certain statements, and they're saying, yeah, the Israelites are using the Google to their advantage. So we got to start taking things away. Just you go back 2 years, a year, 3 years, 4 years. If you put Deuteronomy 28:68, you get put images, you get nothing but pictures of Jake with yokes of iron on their neck and slave ships. You do it now, you're gonna see a whole lot of pictures, and then a whole lot of pictures of other things, and then you might see 3 or 4 pictures of Jake scattered when you go to the image. So guess what? Why are they taking it out? Because we're using Google to our advantage. The same thing goes. I remember we had did a video. This had to be maybe 9 years ago, 10 years ago. We went to this place down there, going down past Wall Street, or Wall Street area, and below Chinatown, and we went to this museum that it was slaves that were buried there. I forget the name of the museum, but we did a video on that. And some of the brothers came from out of state. It was 2 brothers that came out of state. And then we were going into Google to prove that the main people that owned slave ships and was behind the whole slave trade were the Jays. And it was all in Google. Give you a list, give you all more than what you need. Now you do it. They took out a lot. It's hard to find that information. Because like I said, Esau is saying these Israelites are using Google to their advantage. So we got to take some of this stuff out. And that's how this devil gets down. Anyway, so let me do this. I'm trying not to make this long. So this is Cambridge Bible for Schools and Colleges. I'm going to go to the point. Now, let me read some of it. The nations, which are, it almost seems as though the kingdom of the Messiah, which is the kingdom of the Israelites, the head is the Messiah, and of his saints. Who are the saints? They're not the body of believers like Vocab said. The saints are the Israelites, the people that, when our Lord came down and gathered the 12, and by the way, he didn't just bump into a guy named Peter and, oh, would you like to be one of them? No, Peter was already slated. He was there before. He was just in his position. Like it says in Daniel, the 12th chapter, I believe 12 and 13, verse 13, Daniel, the prophet Daniel, speaks about him being put back in his lot, his position. So the reason why the Lord got with Peter and told Peter and James and John that I will make you fishers of men. Then he gathered some more. Two of his brothers were actually of the 12. A lot of Christians don't know that, his biological brothers. So the 12 were there. They were already set to come in. So the Lord was there when them guys were around. So they all those the 12 apostles, and there was 84 altogether, disciples. They were all in the same area. You know, the Lord was born in Bethlehem and he was raised in Nazareth. So that's where they were from. Also Galilee. These men are Galilean. That's the land of Israel. So what nationality were the 12 or the 84 disciples? They were Israelites. No Edomites and Moabites and nothing like that. They were Israelites. And the 12 that remained, except for one, they were all prophets in the past coming back in their lot. And that's, see, if you don't understand reincarnation, you might as well throw the Bible away. You might as well close a book, put it in the closet somewhere, and forget about it. And hope nobody ever even mentions the word Bible to you. Look, Vocab alone is fucked up in the brain. It's a miracle that he's not in a padded room with a straitjacket on, getting fed applesauce and medicated all day. Like one flew over the cuckoo's nest. That's the Christian community. Christian community is one flew over the cuckoo's nest. That's another name for these pagan Christians. The Cuckoo's Nest. If you didn't see that, watch that movie. Watch that movie. That's a classic movie with Jack Nicholson. That's a classic movie. One flew over the cuckoo's nest. And the cuckoo's nest is the crazy house. But the religious cuckoo's nest is any church. Anytime you pass a church, that's the cuckoo's nest. Anyway, let me get back into this. And we didn't told Vocab, we didn't broke it down to him. He can't see it. Why he can't see it? Why can't he see it? Daniel 12 and 10. But the wicked shall not understand. Scriptures speak about this wisdom shall not, I'm paraphrasing from the Apocrypha, this wisdom shall not enter into a malicious soul. So he's not going to get it. He'll never get the reincarnation thing, even though it's right there, written in black and white, and red. If you go to the red of the Bible, the Lord said, he said, if you will receive it, this is Elijah with John, among men born to women, there's no greater than John. And if you receive it, this is Elijah, which is forth to come. That's reincarnation right there. What did the Lord say? He said, matter of fact, let me do this. Going back into the reincarnation thing again. I'm gonna go right to the point. For all the prophets and the Lord prophesied until John, and if ye will receive it, this is Elias, which is forth to come. Go to the red letter. It's going to be written in red. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm kind of going off a little bit. I'm going to do it this way. Matter of fact, I'm going to do it this way. 14th verse. I'm going to go to the NLT. Just to see what the NLT says. And we'll get back in the subject. 13. For before John came, all the prophets and the law of Moses looked forward to this present time. And if you are willing to accept what I say, he is Elijah, the one the prophet said would come. So who was he talking about? He was talking about John. Talking about John. The Lord said, in NLT, Matthew 11:11, I tell you the truth, of all who have ever lived, none is greater than John the Baptist. But according to the ISUPK, John the Baptist fell out the truth. He should have followed the Lord. Well, why would the Lord, after the fact, say this man? Let me read it again. I tell you the truth, of all who ever lived, none is greater than John the Baptist, meaning he's the greatest of all prophets. Yet even the least person, which are y'all are under him, y'all going to be over him in the kingdom and rank. The top ranking members of the kingdom of heaven is going to be the 12, followed by the rest of the 144,000. That's why we have embarked upon this work. For before John, so the subject matter is John, all the prophets and the law of Moses look forward to this present time. Meaning when John came, because when John came, the Messiah came shortly thereafter. And if you are willing to accept what I say, he, John, is Elijah, the one the prophet said would come. That's reincarnation vocab. Yeah, but if you go to Luke 1:17, it says he come in the spirit of power of Elijah. Yeah, the spirit of the my scripture back to you is 1 Corinthians 14:32. The spirit of the prophets is subject to the prophets. Daniel 12:13. I will come back in my lot. So who was Peter? Peter was David. The scripture said, according to the Lord and the law in the book of Ezekiel. Matter of fact, let me go to that. Let me do this. Let me go to the NIV. Let's see what the NIV says. I'm going off subject, but I'll get back on the subject. But I love this subject, man, going into the whole reincarnation thing. Truly I tell you, among those born of woman, there has not risen anyone greater than John the Baptist, but he fell out the truth. For all the prophets and the law prophesied until John, and if you are willing to accept it, John is Elijah who was to come. Whosoever have ears, let him hear. Vocab obviously doesn't have ears. He doesn't have spiritual ears or spiritual eyes. This is why we call him an Edomite. Now he looks like a J. Look like he can be one of the Latin tribes. Well, he would be a Tyr, unless the spirit come down and show us that he's an Israelite. That he better hope he's an Israelite at the end of the day. He better hope his German line on his father's side go back to Max Mellon, because Max Mellon, the guy that knocked out Joe Louis, gave him his first defeat. That dude was a Jake. That was a straight up Jake, man. When Lewis was poor and the tax was after him, this man, Max Mellon, used to send him money. Frank Sinatra used to send Joe money. I think he had a commercial going with Budweiser beer, one of them beer companies, and they would pay him, because Frank Sinatra, they would pay him a check every week. They give him a check. He said, look, funnel the check to Joe Louis. I don't want a dime of the money. Funnel the check to Joe. They love Joe Louis, man. They love Joe Louis, the brown bomber. Anyway, let me get back into the subject. I'm all over the place. But that's my style. Anyway, let's come back over here. So now let's do some reading. Cambridge Bible for schools and colleges. It almost, and by the way, all these scholars, Christian scholars, they contradict each other every time. It says, it almost seems as though the kingdom of the Messiah and of his saints, which are the Israelites, had not been worldwide. They're worldwide now, but had been like the Roman Empire. That's why Claudius kicked out the Israelites, mainly the Christians, over Christos, which is the Roman way, Latin way of saying the Christ, the Messiah. He said, because they were raising hell. They was on the corners, and not enough of you are on the corners. There should be 1,000,001 camps out there, man. You know, the field is white, ready to harvest. Look that up in Luke 10. White, ready to harvest. But the laborers are few. Pray to the Father that he bring forth laborers, man. We don't need cheerleaders, man. We don't need bystanders, man. You got guys that come out and they just listen. They'll put a comment or whatever. They just listen to us. You got to do the work. There was some guys that came out. They had the garments on, not officially a part of GMS, but they follow us. And I told them, normally they'll stand there. I said, look, brother, you get with the other camps up the street, down the block, and you all split up. It's 3 of y'all. Each one of y'all go to camp and you read for the brothers, and because you got to build yourself up. Scriptures in James speak about hearing the word, not hearers, but doers. I'm merely paraphrasing that. Somebody can put it up. When you learn this truth, you have to you can't teach until you learn. You got to eat and then go out. So if you're in this thing for a number of years, you're supposed to be at least a reader, or maybe speak a few words. You got brothers that came in 15 years ago. They're veterans, man. Anybody come up with a question, Christian or whatever, they got to get this precept, hold that precept, give me that whole list. Brother in the background as a reader, I got a precept to go with that, precept that. So this is not about, we're not entertainment, man. You want entertainment, go follow Sarnetta. Go to them blockbuster debates and go pay your money. That's entertainment, man. Captain Desariac versus Shaka Most, that was nothing but entertainment. That's all it is entertainment. All the motherfuckers that went to that thing, if they ain't following the true prophets of the Lord, starting with GMS, they're going to all take that. At the end of the day, they're going to all take that karate. Every last one of them, guaranteed. Shaka going to take it. Captain's going to take it. If he don't wake his ass up, if he don't wake his Tone Trump looking ass up, look up Tone Trump and tell me that's not Captain Tazariak. I was showing them brothers last night. But we like the brother. We love the brother. You know, we hope, and look, we hope that all these brothers, you know, make it. We hope that all these brothers are forgiven if they're going off by the Most High, because they're Israelites, including I hate to say this, but Bishop Nathaniel, we hope the Most High delivers them at the end of the thing. Let's just like we hope we get delivered. That's why we keep doing the work, because we're hoping out of the fear. We might not, if you slack, you might not make it. Well, you want to, Peter said, give diligence to make that call and election sure. You know, I always quote these scriptures off the top of my head. So anyway, it says, forgive me for rambling, but I'm rambling in a cohesive manner. I'm saying things that are, you know, food for thought. It almost seems as though the kingdom of the Messiah and of his saints. Who are the saints? Israelites, not Israelites and Moabites and Ammonites. No, the saints of the Most High, which the word saints is from the Latin santa, which means clean or holy, immaculate. So the saints are the Israelites. Had not been worldwide, it's worldwide now. What does Matthew 24 say? This gospel shall be preached throughout the whole world, and then the end shall come. So has the gospel been preached throughout the whole world? Yes, through the web. But had been like the Roman Empire, because we were raised and held back in the Roman Empire of St. John's Day, or the Christendom, which the true Christians are Israelites, of our own, a wide but limited region of light in the midst of a barbarous world. The barbarians were Jake. The Scythians are Jake. The original Russians, which built up Russia, was Jake. They were the barbarians. So a lot of them Russian soldiers, a lot of them are Jake. Bear me for a minute. It only takes 2 generations to take a dark-skinned black man, 2 generations, 2 to 3 generations, not even 3 generations, 2 generations to completely change a black man into a blonde-haired, blue-eyed white man. Now, if you go to what's his name? Blake Griffin, his father's Jake, Haitian, his mother compares to be an Edomite. You look at him, you know, he looks mixed. That's what you'll say. Well, he looks mixed. What's this guy, Patrick Mahomes? He looks mixed, but he could be mistaken for like a Dominican or Puerto Rican or whatever, or Cuban or whatever, one of the Latin tribes. In the case of Blake Griffin, with his white wife, their son looked like a baby. You should see him now. He's got to be like 5 years old. He looks just like a white. Go to the images. He's like 5 years old. That's a white man. That's a white man. But guess what? Guess what? That's a black man on the inside. All right. So coming back to this, you're going to have a lot of Jakes looking like white people, looking like Moabites, and so forth. Let me read this again. Roman Empire, St. John's Day, or the Christendom of our own, a wide but limited region of light in the midst of a barbarous world. It is not therefore certain that the coming of the kingdom, which is coming now in our lifetime, must be postponed till Christianity has gained its victory over the compact mass of the nations which from China to, see, they're pushing this narrative of, oh, we got to reach everybody with Christianity. No, the Most High is only, the true Christians are Israelites, and the true Christians are the elect of Israel. It says, the Lord is not going to do this thing where you're going to take all of Israel and put them in the wilderness to have to kill them all, or kill most of them. There was only 2 that made it from Egypt into the wilderness 40 years later into the promised land. Only 2 made it that didn't die in the wilderness. The ones that did come to the other side were born in the wilderness. They were keeping the Passover in the wilderness. There was no Friday sundown and Saturday sundown in the wilderness because nobody had a calendar from 7-Eleven or from Rite Aids. They went by everything is based upon the moon. So any of you Israelites teaching that the Friday sundown and Saturday sundown is a Sabbath, you're way off. You're way the hell off. Anybody like IUIC teaching that the full moon is a new moon? I did some research. I did a video on the lunar eclipse as opposed to the solar eclipse. Lunar eclipse, you know how long a lunar eclipse can last? It can last for over 3 hours. I think the longest time was 3 hours and 40 minutes. So remember when everything got dark in the land, when our Lord was on the cross from 12 noon, when you translate it, 12 noon from the, the sixth hour, from the 6th hour to the 9th hour, from 12 noon to 3 p.m., it was darkness. That was a lunar eclipse. Sometimes you have a lunar eclipse that might last a couple of minutes, but a lunar eclipse can last for more than 3 hours. So for 3 hours, there was darkness. That's why one of the Romans, which was a Jake, he said, surely this is the Son of the Most High. Because they got nervous. The Romans got nervous. Everything got dark when he was on the cross. That was a sign for the Most High. Genesis 1:14. These lights in the heavens are for what? For days, weeks, years, months, high holy days, signs, seasons, and signs. Omens. Sign meaning omens. Omen. That means you fucked up. When you put this man on the cross, you done fucked up, man. So get ready for captivity. Postpone till Christianity has gained its victory over the compact mass of nations. Well, that already happened through the YouTube. From China to Guyana, still hold out against it. And we ought to remember the possibility that they may prove as dangerous to the fabric of modern civilization, which is now as the barbarians of Scythia. Do you know who the barbarians of Scythia are? They're Israelites that Paul spoke about. He spoke about the barbarians and the Scythians, that they can receive salvation too. So the original barbarians, which are the Scythians, are they're the ones that went up further north into Russia. It's in Germany. You got a lot of Jakes that are in Germany that look like Edomites. Remember, it only takes 2 generations to take a so-called black, super dark black man and turn his grandson could come out looking like a Scandinavian white boy. 2 generations, not even 3. And Arabia proved to the ancient, but it is possible that the prediction refers not to an inclusion from outlying heathens, and the heathens that receive salvation are Israelites. Cornelius would be considered a Gentile. Cornelius would be considered a heathen. Cornelius would be considered a Greek as opposed to a Grecian. There's a difference between a Grecian, Acts 6, and a Greek, Galatians 3. But to an apostasy of outlying Christians, which are Israelites. Remember, we were scattered throughout the whole planet. If so, this may be illustrated by the way that the remoter provinces of Christendom fell into heresy in the fifth and following centuries. Now, the 5th century is the 400s. That's when Jake was going off. That's where the Moors came on the scene. Moors are Israelites. You had 2 classifications of Moors. You had Moors that kept the law, statutes, and commandments, knew that they were Israelites. Then you had other Moors that embraced Islam. So it wasn't all Moors are Islamic. It says 5th, which is the 400 AD, and following centuries. there were in great measure as a consequence absorbed into what? Islam afterwards. A lot of Jakes went into Islam that were being called Moors, mainly out of Spain. See, the Moors went down. The last stronghold of the Moors was Granada. King if I'm saying his name right, Abdul, something like that. Somebody put it in. I'm not going to look for it. But his name was something to the effect of Abdul something. And he was the last king of Granada. Why was he the last king of Granada? Because Esau came out of that. The chains were taken off of him after the 1,000 years, Revelation chapter 20. After the 1,000 years, he's also deceived the nation. How did he deceive the nation? He had to take down the children of the Most High. He had to take down the Moors, last strongholds, Granada. Look it up. Don't take my word for it. Look it up. I'm not making this shit up. I done did research, y'all. And at that same time, he was taking down the Christian empire, which scholars refer to as the Byzantine Empire. Those were Jakes. All those different icons, mosaics, frescoes, the catacombs, they were all black people. There was no images of white people until mid to late 1400s, 1500s, 1600s, even today. Everything's white. Like I was telling one of them brothers out there, I said in general yesterday, I said back in the day when we were kids, you had a lot of, like right before the night before Easter, you had a bunch of channels that showed movies on Christ. Then they had movies on Christ playing. The best movie that came out on the whole Christ thing, in my opinion, was The Greatest Story Ever Told. And Max von Sydow played the Messiah, but he also he was the greatest Messiah for a white man, but he also played the greatest devil in a movie called Needful Things. If you haven't seen that movie, classic movie, Needful Things. Polar opposites. He played the Christ back, I believe this was early 60s, and Sidney Poitier was in the movie. He played Simon, the man who grabbed the cross. And why did they get Sidney Poitier? Because they knew that Simon was a Canaanite. So they knew that the Canaanites were dark-skinned people. All right? Well, Judas, who is this guy? Who is this? Who is that? Simon Zelotes. They say he was a Canaanite. He wasn't a Canaanite. When you look that word up, it means zealot. You know? So you got people that go off on that. See, we do the research. We research things. We check what the white man says in his books, and we show you where the bones are at. They said in America and in Russia, the countries of Christendom remotest from its centrus of intellectual life. I didn't even have to read all that, but okay, so it says, see Ezekiel 38:39, the prophecy, so the fulfillment of Ezekiel 38 and 39 has nothing to do with the Israelites back in Israel back then, because there was no such thing as Gog and Magog. I mean, Gog and Magog were there, the land was there, but there were no people up there. Ezekiel 38, Ezekiel 39 are going to take place the same time as Revelation 20, verse 7, 8 on down, because it's the same prophecy. It's really, there's only two times, well, actually more than two times, but prophetically, the only time you read about Gog and Magog is in the book of Ezekiel 38, 39, and the book of Revelation 20, verse 7, 8, and I guess you can read 9. So when it speaks about the land, I'm going to go into it, about the land, the cloud over the land, I'm paraphrasing. It's talking about what the Russian armies are going to overrun the people over there in Israel, whether they be JJs. Matter of fact, it's not just JJs over there. It's not just small hats. You got a Greek Orthodox Church. You got the Catholics over there. You got Moabites thinking that they're Israelites, the Cushites. You got a lot of different, that's like a melting pot over there in Israel. You know? You got the Israelis, you got the Sephardic Jews, which I believe they're Jake. You got the Israelis, which I believe they're Jake. You got the Palestinians over there, which a lot of them are Jake, in my opinion. So that's what that's talking about. So, you know, Russia's going to be behind destroying that land of Israel, but it's going to be built back up. So when you read that about the land, also keep in your mind, it's talking about America as well. But it's focusing on the word Israel, the land Israel. So let me read this. This is, bear with me for a minute. Okay, we're still at Cambridge Bibles, right? Gog and Magog, see Ezekiel 38:39, the prophecy which may, for aught we know, have had some nearly contemporary fulfillment, but which the Jewish tradition interpret of a war in the days of the Messiah. Not talking about the war in the days of Messiah. It's not talking about this prophecy not coming to pass 2,000 years ago. Ain't no Gog and Magog that ever came down and invaded the land of Israel. It was the Romans that did that. The Romans are not Gog and Magog. Nearly as here, Magog is given in Genesis 10:2, sons of Japhet, which are dark nations, as the name of a son of Japhet, the Epinimus, there is no doubt of one of the nations lying near the Black Sea. Oh, you read that? The Black Sea. The Black Sea. Let's stop that right there. Give me a second. This is the Mediterranean, Red Sea. That's the Black Sea. Magog, Gog, Meshach, Tubal. This is considered like Eastern Europe. Well, that's Eastern, that's uttermost East, Eastern Europe. You got somewhere like Mid-Eastern Europe, let's say, Javan. You got Elam, which are the people of Iran. You got Libya, which is Put, which is right here. It says Put. You got Mizraim, which is the Egyptians. You got Cush. It says that God is going to be a God unto them, unto all these people right here. And Russia is about sweeping up with Ukraine. They're done. They're done. They're done. I was watching Redacted with Clayton Morris, and he had Scott Ritter on, and he was basically saying they're talking about there's going to be 100-year war. He said ain't gonna be no 100-year war. He said the Russians are about ready to damn clean their hands of the thing. They say ain't no way it's going to be no 100-year war because the Russians are kicking ass. Now the Russian commanders, they respect the soldiers of the Ukraine because they're there fighting. They're getting their ass, they're getting killed left and right, but they're still fighting. So there's certain Russian leaders, military leaders, are calling these guys heroes. We love you, but we got to kill you because they got to establish that. That's in Jeremiah 50 or 55. It says an assembly of nations. The Most High is causing Russia to assemble a nation, to reassemble Russia. Ukraine was formerly a part of the Russian republics. And the other nations are Asia, China, certain other European nations. Like you have Belarus. Belarus is a part of Russia, and they're an ally unto Russia. Poland is an ally unto the Ukraine. And they're all right here. They're all right over here. right over here. That's the hotbed. When it starts moving down here, when you start hearing about Libya and which is that, what do you call that? Gaddafi land. What's their current name? The Libyans. The Libyans, you got Lud, Mizraim. When you hear about them Russians and them troops coming down in here, Chinese and so forth, Germans, all these armies coming down in this area here, the Great Levant, you got Italy over here. When that comes further down, that's when you keep your eyes open. That's when you keep your eyes open. He said they're going to be a god unto the Persians. Persia is right here. Elam, right here. Because the Persians, the Medes and the Persians were the sons of the people of Iran today, the Carmanians in the Apocrypha. Look up the word Carmanian, it'll take you back to the Armenian dictionary, the Iranian dictionary, excuse me, and it'll say that's an old province, that's an old name. So this is where you got to keep your eyes on. All this right here. So that's what Ezekiel 38 is talking about. Is Israel a part? Israel is right here. Who gonna get jacked up? A lot of our people gonna get jacked up. A lot of the other nations and the Jays are gonna get jacked up. And this place is gonna be utterly destroyed but built back up. How many times I got to say that? So let me see here. Where am I? Let me come back. I'm gonna get ready to close it, man. I'm speaking too long. Okay, so I said Black Sea. So I showed you the Black Sea, right? Bring it back. But it's a different one. So you can understand that's the Black Sea. Caspian Sea. In between that is the Caucasus Mountains. Esau came out the Caucasus Mountains because what happened? Some Edomites stayed down here in Petra, the Mount Seir, and some of them went up there. Then you have Macedon, which is up here. They don't show you a picture of it. And that's where Alexander came out of, up here, because they formerly, before that they were Greeks, they were Caucasians. They were living in the Caucasus Mountains. Right here. This is where it came from. So it's easy for them to migrate from here up to here. At the same time, you had Edomite state living down there. So you had a split there. Just like Israel is scattered throughout the whole earth. Guess what? Esau was scattered throughout the whole earth too. Because this guy, well, how can Europeans, this is vocab, how can Europeans, because if it's possible for Israelites to go to other nations thousands of miles from where they are, that's what the whole law of the strangers is all about. It's not possible for Esau to do it. And the reason why they were stretched out is because the Most High put the spirit on Esau to stretch himself out to fulfill prophecy. That's why the Carthaginian Empire could not defeat the Romans. When the Romans came to take them down, they always defeated the Romans. They said, we're gonna go to Rome and take Rome, and they failed. Why? Because their best men died going over the Alps mountains. They froze to death. They couldn't deal with the cold. And the reason why that ultimately happened is because the Most High they got to set up prophecy, and he got to keep the Edomites going to fulfill prophecy. See, this is one thing that vocab doesn't know, and none of them Christians know this. They don't understand prophecy, because if they did, they would tell you what Babylon the Great is in the book of Revelation. And you know me, I stays in these prophecies, man, because we're living in the time of the prophecies. I ain't concerned about King David wearing brown sandals with gold tassels on it. I'm not concerned about that. King David was left-handed. No, I'm not concerned about that. King David had cornrows. I'm not concerned about that bullshit. Guy teaching the class. King David had cornrows. Okay. So let me come back here. So it says the Black Sea. I'm stretching out, please forgive me, and called by the Europeans, Scythians, which were Israelites. Europeans were Israelites, original Europeans are Israelites. Check out the icon before Esau, before the Renaissance art, which was known as the Dark Ages. Europeans was named after a fictional woman named Europa, who Zeus came down and turned himself into a white, I believe it was a white bull, and seduced this woman, Europa, to get on his back. And then he went somewhere and popped her, turned into Zeus and popped her. So that was a fictional story. But they kept that word Europe. Europa is a black woman, a Greek black woman, which never existed at any time. Like Othello. Othello was never existed. Desdemona never existed. The Capulets never existed. That was a story that Shakespeare wrote, which was, somebody wrote that, I think it was maybe 50 years before that. It was called the Moorish Captain, which he redid the story and changed the name and called it the Othello. It says and the thing about Othello, when Esau watched the play, you have Desdemona played by a white woman and Othello played by a black man. I actually saw the play with this guy, what's the brother, the actor, the big brawly actor, can't even think of his name. He played in a movie, Claudine. I can't even think of his name, man. I actually saw him one time in the street, but I went to the play and I actually saw him, and they had a white actress. Damn, what's his name? Earl something. Can't even think of his name. It'll come back to me. It'll come back to me. I hate that, man. Oh, he played Hakeem's father in Coming to America. He was the father. He said, do you have sex with your bathers? I know I do. I forget the dude's name, but anyway, he played Othello, and it was an Edomite actress that played Desdemona. First of all, Desdemona was as black, so-called black, as Othello. Okay, so it says, Europeans, please forgive me for rambling. European Scythians, which were Jakes. The original Europeans were Jakes. The original Scythians were Jakes. Paul spoke about the Scythians, how they can receive salvation. So he wasn't talking to Edomites. In the wide sense, Gog appears in Ezekiel, I don't know what this means, to be not a national name, but the name, whether personal or diet. Is his name Earl Jones? I gotta forget his damn name. Dynastic of the king of Magog. So anytime you come across the word Magog, which means from Gog, Ma meaning from, or Gog, we know it's talking about current day Russia, which back there, going back 2,000 years ago, there was no such thing as Gog. Meaning when I say Gog or current Russia, that was a no man's land at that time. So the ones that built it up were those Rough Riders. And the neighboring or kindred tribes of Rosh is short for Russia, Meshach, and Tubal. The resemblance of two of these names to the modern Russia. So they're telling you the truth. They're telling you the truth. Scholars understand Rush, and they'll tell you in a minute that Rush is short for Russia, which is a Hebrew word. Most High opened my heart and my spirit to understand what Russia means. It's two words, compound word, two Hebrew words. Rawchaa, Ra'ash, head or chief, and Shah meaning prince. And it even says that in Ezekiel, it even says Ezekiel 38, the chief prince. Chief prince in the Hebrew is Ra'ash Shah, Russia. And Muscovy, I don't know what that means, I'll look it up later, is merely accidental, but it would be rash to deny the possibility that the geographical or ethnological suggestion is to be taken literally, and that St. John does foretell an invasion. That's Revelation 20, verse 7 and 8. Something like that of the Huns or Tartars. The Tartars were spoken about in the movie The 13th Warrior. And falling in Christendom, Israelism, from the same quarter. So we were always involved in history, man. If you go to a place that's popping, guess what? Israelites made it live and popping. To gather them, nearly a repetition of Revelation 16 and 14. I hope you can see that. For they are the spirit of devils working miracles to gather them to the great day of the Lord Almighty. Revelation 17:12. You know what that means? The EU and the NATO nations, they're going to shoot missiles on Babylon. Revelation 17:14. These shall make war with the Lamb, and that's Second Ezra's 13. Excuse me. And I saw the beasts and the kings of the earth and their armies gathered together to make war against him that sat on the throne, Yahawashi, and against his army, the angels. That's Revelation 12. Yet it always comes down to these prophecies. Anything in the book of Revelation, anything in the book of Jeremiah, Isaiah, you know me, I go into these prophecies because we're in the time of prophecies. Before the Lord came, when John was baptizing people, they knew that's Elijah. That's Elijah. That's definitely, that's why they had their heads send over wicked scribes and Pharisees. And they said, we were sent here to find out who you are, because they were saying this guy might be John the Baptist. I mean, this guy might be Elijah coming back. So they knew if Elijah was here, then the Messiah was not too far. And guess what? When he was baptizing people, John had more fame than our Lord. Then the Lord came on the scene and he said, let me get baptized. And what did John said? He saw the ship come down in the form of a dove. And he saw that, and then he heard, this is my beloved son, in whom I am well pleased. He said, I shouldn't be baptizing you. You should be baptizing me. He bigged him up because he knew that that was the Messiah. Now, how in the hell did John? That's ridiculous, man. That's ridiculous. That's irresponsible to make a stupid statement like that. John the Baptist fell out the truth. He should have did what Peter did and followed the Lord. He did follow the Lord. Actually, the Lord followed him because he came before the Lord. It said, yet it can be hardly described the same event. It seems plain that whatsoever be the meaning of the first resurrection and the 1,000 years reign. People get mixed up on the 1,000 years reign when they go to Revelation 20, and it says, and the dragon shall be released for 1,000 years. So even Lahab said that on the Fopi show. This is about a year and a half ago. He said that when we get in the kingdom, we're going to live for the first 1,000 years, and then Esau is going to regroup, and he's going to come against us again. No, once Esau goes down, he's going to stay down. All right? Because it says our kingdom is going to be an everlasting kingdom. So they don't understand this prophecy. And so whatsoever be the meaning of the first resurrection and the 1,000 years reign. Now the beast, the dragon coming back out is talking about what? During the time of Christopher Columbus, during the time of the late 1400s, during the time of the Renaissance, period. They intervened between that war and this. Moreover, the former war was on the part of the rulers of the civilized world, this on the part of the outer barbarians. Well, the civilized world they're talking about now. It's going to take, Ezekiel 38 is going to take place now. Revelation chapter 20, verse 7 is going to take place now. Excuse me. Here it is again. I'm going to go right to the point. To hold the place of the proper name until the fierce leader of so many nations under Satan appears at length in his own name. Jerome on Ezekiel 38 was Jerome. He was one of the church fathers. He didn't know what he was talking about. Because remember, the book was closed until the time of the end. We understand everything in the scriptures. Excuse me. This guy, Vocab Malone, he hops on John Calvin, which he might even beat John Calvin coming back. John Calvin didn't know what the hell was going on because the book was closed at that time. The book was closed at that time. The book is open now. Go to Daniel 12. The book is open now. The book was sealed until the what? Until the time of the end. We're in the time of the end. When I say the end. Because the end started when Yahawashi was on the scene. That's when the clock started ticking down. So it says Ezekiel 38 would not have refused to take Rosh, which is Russia, as a proper name. If the name of such a nation, the Russians, had been known to him. So you know what I'm going to do? Let me do this. I'm going to close on this. Let me go to Ezekiel. First of all, let me go to Revelation. Revelation 20. The judgment of Satan. Satan meaning the physical counterpart of the spiritual demon Satan. See what the blue letter did? The judgment of Satan. Reference scriptures, Ezekiel 38 and Ezekiel 39. It says when 1,000 years are over, so they're telling you that it's talking about something that's getting ready to happen. It says when 1,000 years are over, Satan, which is his physical counterpart of the spiritual demon Satan, will be released from his prison. Go back to the first verse, 1,000 years, chains around him for 1,000 years, and will go out to deceive the nations. When did they start deceiving the nations? Through the Renaissance period, through Christopher Columbus, through Queen Isabella, through King Ferdinand. They had taken down the Moorish stronghold, which was Granada. Read that. Read about the history of Granada. That was a great kingdom. And during that time, Edomites wanted to be, they were dressing like Arabs, they were speaking Arabic. So a lot of these Arabs are Edomites. They kept with the religion of Islam. Because the original Arabs are dark. Ishmaelites are dark. A lot of them have woolly hair. It says, and will go and out to deceive the nations. How they deceive the nations? Now, if Bishop Nathaniel said they deceived them through the picture of the Christ, then he's right. But he's saying the MOTB, the image in Revelation, Revelation 13 is talking about the picture. No, they ain't pushing the picture of Caesar Borgia. When they first deceived the nation, they deceived the nation in the name of the Christian God and Caesar Borgia. Because Caesar Borgia was already there. Pope Alexander VI, Rodrigo Borgia, he was a pope, and his son, his youngest son, Caesar Borgia, there was official painting of him. And then they started teaching the world, this is Jesus. This is Jesus right here. So that picture that everybody, that Edomite picture of the Messiah is nothing but Caesar Borgia. Look up, type in the word Caesar Borgia and go to images, and it looks just like the Christ that every church has, because that's Caesar Borgia. That wasn't the real God. That's the Antichrist. So if you want to call a man the Antichrist, that's the Antichrist right there, the anti-type. So the deception came through Christianity. They looked at everybody through a papal bull. I believe that papal bull, I believe it was either 1491, 92, or 93. But I believe the Pope at that time was Rodrigo Borgia. Look it up. All you got to, don't take my word for it. Look it up. Don't make me do the homework. You do the homework. when you go into the whole history of the papal bull, that was the decree from the Pope, which was out of Spain. The power was coming out of Spain, not out of Rome. Now it's back in Rome, but the power of the papacy came out of Spain. Everything came out of Spain at that time. So a papal bull was a decree in the form of a letter that they sealed with wax, and there was like a little ball, so they called it the papal bull, meaning the Pope's decree. So he said, how did he say it? How did he say it? He said, anything to the west of like Spain that you go to, that's your land. I'm giving that land to you. So part of that papal bull was, if they go to the Americas, that's the rulership of the Europeans. That's their land. They just said, okay, wherever you go, whatever you land on, if there's people there, kill them. I'm blessing you. Take that land. And what reminds you of that? When the sons of Israel went out of Egypt into the wilderness, and the Lord said, okay, you're going to take the land of Canaan. Don't make any agreements with them. Just kill them and just destroy them, burn them down, burn down their houses. So that was like a papal decree from the Most High. So that's what they were using. They said, well, wait a minute. I'm the vicar of the Messiah. So whatever I say goes. The scriptures also say, whatever thou art bound in heaven are bound in earth, whatever are bound in earth are bound in heaven. Meaning if we make certain decisions, the heavens are in agreement with it. So these people really thought that they were the sons of the Most High, that they were the chosen ones. So that's why he said, wherever you go, just like Israelites took down the Canaanites, wherever you go, God said that's your land, which it was, because a prophecy had to be fulfilled. All right? This is all easy once you understand it. Once you understand it, this is all very easy. So what they did was they put out the picture of Christ. They were looking at, who the fuck is this nigga? Then they just kill him. Then they killed so many of them that they said, okay, we don't want to die no more. So whatever you got to give us, we're going to accept. Okay, accept Christianity in the form of Roman Catholicism. And they accepted it. That's why when you go to North, Central, and South America, all those countries down there, the predominant religion is what? Roman Catholicism, because it was the Spaniards that brought Roman Catholicism with them. And that proves that they're the Israelites. You should worship gods, both wood and stone. Wood and stone represent what? The buildings, because they worship the building. They didn't just worship the idols, but they worshiped the buildings. And when they went inside the buildings, they worshiped the idols in the buildings. The wood and stone represent the various idols. So those are the Israelites. So the Israelites were already here. The northern kingdom was already here. They came over here. We're talking like over 700 years BC. So now, 8th verse. And will go out to deceive the nations in the four corners of the earth, meaning the whole earth, because when they came out the second time, they took the whole earth over, Gog and Magog, Gog and Magog represent Russia. Russia's going to take over the Ukraine, and the Ukraine is going to become a province of Russia. And those ones that want to live, look, when the Romans took down people, they didn't put them in slavery. They didn't necessarily kill them. What they said was, look, we overpowered you. We killed a lot of your soldiers, and we can just destroy you. But we're not going to put you in slavery. All we're going to do is tax you. It was called feudalism or tributary. He said, you can do whatever. You can believe in your God. You can do whatever the hell you want. We ain't going to put no religion on you. You can do whatever the fuck you want. You can believe in whatever God you want to believe in, as long as we get a tax from you. So people said, oh, that's all right. I'll pay a tax. At least I don't got to go into slavery. So pretty much the same thing the Russians doing. They're taking over Ukraine, and they'll say, we're not going to kill any of you. You just got to be part of the Russian Republic. So you ultimately you're gonna have to fight against the Americas. That's why you got the BRICS nations. The BRICS nations are a direct opposite of NATO and the EU. and said, and will go out to deceive the nations in the four corners of the earth. That's talking about now, Gog and Magog, Russia, and to gather them for the battle in number. Wait a minute. And to gather them for battle. In number, they are like the sand of the seashore. What would it say? Assembly of many nations or many great nations. They march across the breadth of the earth and surround the camp of God's people. The camp of God's people are who? The Israelites, which are scattered throughout the whole planet, right? The camp of Israel is what? A camp is also a place that you set up tents. So what's the camp of Israel? The land of Israel. That's what it means in Ezekiel 38, that they're going to come against my people Israel in their land. Not talking about Israelites per se, it's talking about them people in the land of Israel, which a lot of them, hundreds and thousands of them are Israelites. The Palestinians are some of them Israelites, I believe. They're various different nations. You got a lot of Israelites there that don't even know that they're Israelites. And at the same time, they're going to be looking to destroy us in America and around the world. But that focus is talking about the land of Israel. So the camp of Israel represents the children of Israel, but it also represents the land of Israel. Let's look up the word camp. Was not the wilderness a camp? Let's look up the word camp.
Strong's G 3925. Parembale.
An encampment. The camp of Israel in the desert. What desert is it talking about? It's talking about the wilderness. The wilderness for 40 years was a camp used for the city of Jerusalem. In so much as that was to the Israelites, the real Israelites, what formerly the encampment had been in the desert, the wilderness of the sacred congregation or assembly of Israel, right? Because the camp can also be talking about the peoples of Israel, but it also is talking about the actual camp, actual place, which is the land of Israel. That's the camp. The first camp that they were in was the wilderness. The second camp that they went to was a better camp, a place flowing with milk and honey, was the land of Israel, also a camp. It says, of the sacred congregation of assembly of Israel, as it had been gathered formerly in camps. In camps in the what? In the wilderness. That's why they set up tents out there, because they were moving. And barracks of the Roman soldiers, which at Jerusalem were in the castle of Antonia, an army in a line of battle. Yeah, like it says here, barracks. The next day, they let the cavalry go on with him while they returned to the barracks, while they returned to the camp. Hebrews. The high priest carries the blood of animals into the most holy place, the Holy of Holies, as a sin offering, but the bodies are burnt outside the camp. Because when was the high priest doing them sacrifices for 40 years? In the wilderness. They had a tabernacle set up. The temple wasn't going to be built, and we are the temple. You know what I'm saying? We are the temple. Was going to be built when we got into the promised land. I really don't even got to go into Ezekiel, because I believe I covered it. I made this long, but hope y'all stay with me to the end. It says they march across the breadth of the earth. Oh, that's the NIV. Let me go to the KJV. Satan freed, doomed. Satan is free, Christopher Columbus, and doomed, getting ready to be doomed. Ezekiel 38, 39. And when 1,000 years were expired, Satan, the physical counterpart of Satan, shall be loosed out of his prison and shall go out to deceive the nations. That was through Roman Catholic. If you didn't bow down to the Roman Catholics, and part of bowing down was to go into slavery, because we were considered inferior to them. So you accepted Christ, but you're still going into slavery. But we're not going to kill you or torture you. It says, and when 1,000 years are expired, Satan shall be loosed out of his prison and shall go out to deceive the nations. First was Christianity. Now it's politics and economics, because ultimately, everybody that's not of the elect is going to take the charagma, because they're going to push out the politics and they're going to give you the economics of it. Meaning, if you don't get it, you can't buy or sell, because they're going to be hooked into the blockchain, which is the CBDC, the Fed dollar, or the Fed now. They're going to do away with paper money. It says, and shall go out to deceive the nations which are in the four quarters of the earth, the Gog and Magog, to gather them together to the battle, the number of whom is as the sand of the sea. All these nations that possess superior firearms, modern firearms, and the missiles, they're going to be gathered in the Great Levant, which is the Middle East. And they went up on the breadth of the earth and compassed the camp of the saints. We read that. Camp of the saints are the Israelites, but it's also the land of the Israelites. About, and the beloved city. The beloved city are the Israelites, but the beloved city is also the land of Israel. Because what is the Most High going to ultimately do? He's going to bring us back to our beloved city. And fire came down from the Most High out of heaven and devoured them. We know what that means. And who's going to be devoured? A lot of those European nations are going to get jacked up. But the Babylon's going to be utterly destroyed, and Israel's going to be utterly destroyed, but it's going to be rebuilt back up. So it says, 10th verse, and the devil, which is the physical counterpart of the spiritual demon Satan, that deceived them in the beginning, going back to the very beginning, after the 1,000 years, they deceived people through Christianity. They're not using Christianity no more. They're using economics and politics. Deceive them, which was cast into the lake of fire. The lake of fire is not talking about you're going to burn in hell forever and meet little Nicky. It's not talking about that. If you don't know what I'm talking about when I say Little Nicky, that's a movie with Adam Sandler. That's a funny ass movie. But the movie is centered around hell, and Little Nicky was a demon that came to earth. It said where the funny movie too, where the beast and false prophet are. The lake of fire is Babylon the Great. And that's John looking at from a bird's eye view, or what they call a schematic. And shall be tormented day and night forever and ever. Now that means what? They're not going to ever come back. That place is going to be burning for a long time. And then the torment's going to come into captivity. So anybody teaching this nonsense that the lake of fire is not the hell written in the New Testament, the Old Testament. It's talking about eternal hell that you're going to burn forever. So for the next 1 trillion years, you're going to be burning. That's all you're going to do. Day in and day out, you're just going to be burning. That's some old Christian bullshit, man. That's why when the IUIC came out with them videos, we jumped on them. Why did we jump on them? Because we are the defenders of this word. The mother camps don't jump on these guys. All right. But anyway, let me close it, man. Let me shut my mouth. I know I went a little bit long, but so what? Shalom.